You're listening to Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast for and by Rockies fans on Rocky Mountain Rooftop. Thank you for joining us as we discuss all things baseball and Colorado Rockies.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Affected by Altitude, Colorado Rockies podcast by the Rocky Mountain Rooftop Network, a proud affiliate of the Fans First Sports Network. I'm your host, Skyler Timmons, joined here once again by a sad individual here at the end of the week, but at least he saw the ripping hot bod of Rada the Hutt. It's Evan Lang.
There were a lot of characters in this movie that I didn't know who they were because I never watched Clone Wars or Rebels. And every time there was like an establishing shot of like, oh, it's this guy. I'm like, I don't know who this is, but okay.
Dave Filoni's greatest flaw is thinking you've watched everything that he's made.
Dave Filoni's greatest flaw is that stupid hat he insists on wearing.
No, it's cool, and I like wolves.
It's not cool. It's not cool at all, Dave Filoni. Like,
Also,
when I first saw him...
He talks like George Lucas.
When I first saw him in the movie, I'm like, of course he's wearing this stupid hat.
Mm-hmm. Hey, but it could have been Martin Scorsese's weird little chimpanzee alien thingy.
Yeah. You know, one thing I will say is that this movie was really, I think, poorly advertised. I think Disney did a really bad job advertising it. The trailers, the CG looks a lot worse than the finished product. That was something I noticed is like in the watching the trailers, I'm like, this doesn't look very good. And it looks fine. Like, the movie looks totally fine. And also, I don't understand why they chose to use like a more whimsical font for just like the posters and advertising, when in the movie itself, it just uses the regular Mandalorian font to go The Mandalorian and Grogu. And it's a lot of ways that they marketed this movie really bother me, because like, I think that's part of why it's not doing super great. Is there's not been a ton of advertising, and what advertising there has been bad.
Yeah, and expecting more people to have watched The Mandalorian.
Yeah, to have watched 3 seasons of The Mandalorian, plus probably the Book of Boba Fett, which isn't that good. Has its moments, but isn't that good.
Mm-hmm. Best parts of that show was when Boba Fett wasn't even the focus.
Which is a shame, because Timur Morrison is so cool.
Mm-hmm. Those big old white veneers.
But don't forget, though, the most important part of that movie was the Technicolor steampunk moped gang.
It's true. And unnecessary spins around. But speaking of unnecessarily spinning around and all that stuff, the Rockies.
What a spin around it's been from April and into May.
It's true. But yeah, we're at the end of May. We'll get into all that and all the good stuff towards the end of the episode, Players of the Month. But got some business. We just finished out the week after a horrible game against the Giants, where the Rockies just got the heck beaten out of them in the second half of the game. First half was just a slog, but then ends out. They do get a series win, but otherwise, May ends on a sour note, as the Rockies had a rougher month. But somebody who hasn't had a rougher month, who's started to heat up a little bit, Evan, and we've talked about him before about his struggles. Now we get to talk about the turn side of it. Is old Ezequiel Tovar has started to look a little bit more like the Tovar we know and love at the plate, and it's been really fun to see.
Yeah, especially in really, it was the second half of May where he really started to finally have things click, because what we've talked about in previous episodes, it came in stages where he was striking out less and drawing more walks. And then he was making better swings, but he just wasn't making good contact. And then over the last really 2 weeks of the month is when he finally started to make good contact. And honestly, overall, he had a very good series against the Giants. despite the fact that they ended up, getting pulverized in the finale, he still had a hit. He hasn't really struck out that much. And you look at his numbers for May compared to his numbers for April, where he's essentially halved his strikeout rate, doubled his walks, and he's making better hits. And I think it goes to show you how hard he has been working both in game and behind the scenes to find his rhythm, find his groove, and become a better player.
Yeah, and it's something that we've talked about with him a lot before because last year was rough because he just couldn't quite find the rhythm because he was hurt all the time. And then he'd start to get hot. Like, okay, Tovar's going to break out. Oh, he's injured again. And it kind of carried over into the start of this season where he had a awesome spring training, WBC, but then just stumbled out of the gate. And now that we're starting to see those stages, like you said, it's starting to click. And I think the epitome of that is, was that Friday? Friday's game with the Rockies end up with a walk-off on the Giants, and that part of that is fueled by Tovar hitting 2 home runs in that game, a couple of 2-run shots, including the game-winning home run in the ninth. We've seen the power start to show up. Over this week, where now he's got up to 4 home runs on the season now, something like that. He's had 3 home runs this week.
Yeah, four home runs when overall he had just one before. He's still getting the doubles. There, like, don't get me wrong that there's still a lot of work to be done, but this is a guy who's hitting below 200 for the better part of a month. And it's going to be slow going, but he's got his average coming out of the month of May up to like somewhere in the 2 teens, and just overall has been, it's what 221. There we go. And overall has just been much more like the Tovar we've seen. And the problem is, you look at all of his numbers and it's an uphill battle because with all of the counting stats and even with the advanced metrics, he has such a hole to climb himself out of.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting, Evan, and like what feels different between, in years previous to the new coaching staff and all that whatnot is we're seeing guys just how much work they're trying to put in behind the scenes to try and better themselves and make adjustments midseason where, last year and in years prior, we'd see guys and like, where's the adjustments? Where are the adjustments being made? It'd be like one guy that's making them, but we're seeing multiple guys working on stuff, making adjustments, and then we're starting to see inklings of results. And I think Tovar's a good poster child of that because he never carried it on defense, still awesome on defense, but to see him, you watch at bats as of late, and they're just so much better. He's taking pitches, not chasing as often, and then puts a good swing on it. It's a line drive, but hey, he put the ball in play. And those things, eventually, something has to give, and he starts hitting the home runs, to go along with the doubles that he has had, but really tapped into that power that we know he has, because he's a dude that almost put up a 30-homer season a couple years ago.
Yeah, and you look at even just this San Francisco Giants series, like he had the one really, really good game on Friday. The other 2 games, he only had 1 hit, but throughout the entire series, something like, I'm bad at math, around between 15 to 17 at bat, something like that. He only struck out 3 times.
It's good.
That'll play. And that at bat number is probably totally wrong. Again, I am bad at basic math, but the point still stands that, we've had so many games this year where it feels like Tovar is just up there and he is flailing. His incredibly bad habit of chasing those pitches down and away, especially breaking balls, and just the chasing, the whiffing, the feeling like he's not being patient and not seeing the zone. Because Tovar, I think, has a better eye than he is given credit for.
Yeah.
But you've got to use it.
Yeah. It's you can have an elite eye, but if you're still super aggressive, it doesn't matter what kind of eye you have. And I think that's what we're starting to see is that he has that other tool in his belt, known as tool belt, that, I can draw walks and put together these good lengthy at bats be patient. That's what you need. And no, there's nothing wrong with being aggressive, but you can be over aggressive, and that's when it becomes a problem. And that's what was his problem, was
Yeah.
his flailing at the plate. But now we're seeing him. He'll take a pitch. He'll swing at a good pitch. And in the past we've seen him foul it off. Or earlier this month he was fouling pitches off because the timing wasn't quite there yet. But now he's starting to time things up, and throwing out a hit a game. That's perfectly fine. 1 out of 3, so get you into the Hall of Fame. And he's doing that now, and it's really awesome to see. And it's such a huge boost for that lineup if you can add a really productive Tovar into the any part of that lineup.
Yeah. And even just looking at, the basic stuff of just getting on base, is he only had a couple of streaks of not really getting on base in May. The biggest thing is, especially with hits, is in April, especially, he would go through these multi-game stretches of just not getting on base, not getting any hits. He's not drawing walks, he's striking out. I think the longest one was like a 5-game stretch where he had no hits and no walks. And, I think some of those were against the Dodgers. So tough pitching, but at the same time, it's, buddy, we know you can do better than this. What's going on? And then you look at the very start of May, he's got a couple streaks, 2 games at the very beginning of May, 3 games in that rough stretch where the Rockies transitioned from playing the Braves to Mets, and then we're on the road against the Phillies. But then after that, he's only had, it's an occasional game of, he didn't have a hit, but maybe he has a walk or something like that. So he can still be productive somewhat and not just go on. Like, one of the biggest issues with a ton of Rockies players have been these awful hot and cold stretches. Like Edouard Julien, for example. Wow, what a rough May. Just ow. But
couldn't buy a hit.
What is, I think, really underrated, especially when it comes to guys like Tovar, is you don't necessarily need to be on a tear to be a productive hitter and to be contributing to the team. And that's what Tovar has been doing. Is he's not, I would not call him red hot or anything like that, but he has been slowly and quietly amping up his production and being, someone who can help out this team in addition to his incredible defense.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's several guys that have been like that, but it's good to see Tovar just finding his path again, and it's testament to the work he puts in behind the scenes. Like, these guys know when they're struggling, and they're going to do everything they can to get out of it. Like, don't believe for a second that a guy is that's struggling, not getting the hits. Like, I'm just going to keep doing the same thing over and over. No, these guys spend countless hours in the cage, working with Jordan Pacheco and Brett Pill, looking over video feeds and all that stuff. They're doing everything they can, and it's nice to see Tovar starting to see some results start to come through. He said it's those productive at bats where he's contributing he's getting a sac fly. Yeah, he's over 2, but he had a sac fly, drove in a run. That's great. Had a walk, that type of stuff. Because then as you start timing up the ball, you're making contact, then the hits, the home runs start to come, which is awesome to see.
I think what makes it hard for Tovar and what makes it kind of weird for fans is, we've had Tovar on this team since he was 20. He's been here for parts of 4 seasons now. He's 24. He's going to be 25 in the near future. And what we are used to seeing is that he's been here for a while, and he is, as everyone has said, he's very mature for how young he was when he entered the league. And he doesn't show a ton of emotions while he is playing. And, I think that you see other guys when they're struggling, they'll like lash out, they'll show that emotions, they'll wear the feelings on their sleeve. And Tovar really didn't do that during this big period of slump. But he had this interview with Thomas Harding after his walk-up home run. And I really like what he said here is he said, I'm not a robot. It's going to eat at me sometimes when I'm not executing the way that I want. It's going to hurt me. But I understand that no matter what happens, I've got to trust in God that things are going to come. And he just keeps on trying. And I've always been really impressed with Tovar and how dedicated and what a hard worker he is. And I think sometimes he sells himself a little short,
Yeah.
but in the grand scheme of things, Tovar is a good player and an incredibly hard worker. And he has time. He is so young still. Like, it's the same with Mickey Moniak. Like, Mickey Moniak had already been in the league for 6 years before he came to the Rockies. And he still only just turned, 28 the other week.
Yeah.
There is time. There is time for them to turn into a good player, to turn into a great player, but it's about putting in the work and utilizing the resources.
Yeah. And it's good to see. And hopefully now as we turn the script over to June, that he can continue to heat up even more, just like the weather, and start thumping like he has in the past. And it's weird to think that he's been around as he has, but like he's still poised for a true breakout year, like 2023. Now, yeah, was it 23 or 24? I always forget those years. Somewhere when he had his really good year. Um, no, that's 1 year. Now you got to prove that wasn't a fluke, and I think that's the path that he's trying to find.
Yeah.
And
And it helps
promising
when those
signs.
happen when you're young, because I think of, other guys now where that time is now gone. Like, the time is now gone for Kyle Freeland to quote unquote prove that he's the guy he was in 2017 and 2018. He has
Yeah,
instead proven that he's not. And you can say the same of a lot of other guys. You could say the same of Ryan McMahon before we traded him. Of every year it was, is this the year that Ryan McMahon finally breaks out? And then eventually there's really no more runway to go, okay, now you've got time to break out. And this is just kind of who you are as a player. And that's
yeah,
not
I guess,
always a bad thing. Like, the Major League Baseball is built on your adequate baseball players.
yeah. Like the superstars getting the gigantic contracts, or it's a smaller pool. But it's seeing where Tovar settles in, because in those other examples, a large sample size, but on you also take into account like the age of players and where they are. Like Tovar joined so young, didn't have as much minor league development time. In a sense, that experience through the normal minor league system as other guys. Especially being like one of the Latin players signed, the path is a lot different for them sometimes. Like they're around for a while, but they also don't get as much like development time sometimes as well.
Yeah.
And
Well,
Tovar gets rushed up, and now he's been learning on the job, and now I think there's finally a coaching staff in place that's pushing hard to get him to where he needs to be. Because we saw him a little bit hints of last year of better discipline, but not to the extent of the good at bats that he's having this year or
yeah.
over these last couple of weeks.
And Tovar still is the third youngest guy on the team and the second youngest position player.
Yeah.
And we look at all the other guys who, Tovar was unfortunately a victim of, and it affected him less, I think, than some of these other guys,
Yeah.
but of the desperation moves, the panic moves over the last few years to have their guy and promote these guys so quickly. I mean, we can say the same of Kyle Caros. We love Kyle Caros here on the show, friend of the show, but he got rushed a little bit. And now he's one of those guys who's having to learn a very hard lesson against big league pitching. And, he's another one of those guys who's slowly starting to come out. He's finding his pop. He finally hit a home run against the team that isn't the Dodgers.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and there's the number of guys like that now that you're starting to see of, okay, it proves like you got to be patient with the Rockies of this season, especially like as much as we love Kyle Karros and like Tovar to come out of the gate and they're hitting 320 and hitting a home run every other at bat. That'd be amazing. But that's not the players that this team has. It's guys that have to figure out, not just to survive, but be successful at the big league level. And no, even Tovar, who's been around for several seasons now, he's still learning that lesson. And so is Caro. So is Jordan Beck. I'd say even Brenton Doyle is in that in that realm, even though he's a little older than these other guys.
I mean, heck, I'd even say Mickey Moniak.
Yeah.
Like, you compare his performance this year to last year to previous seasons, and there's been a lot of bumps in the road. And, it
Mm-hmm.
stinks that he's hurt because I think he really has been on the path this year of finally having his true breakout campaign.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. But it's good to see Tovar having success. And it's fun. When Tovi is good, it's a good time for everybody.
When it is Tovar time, times are good.
It's yes, when it's Tovar time, it's time for Tovar.
Sí, Tovamos.
Time for Tovar tubbies. Ugh.
Yeah, I do not like how that, yeah,
Do they just show highlights of Tovar clips on their little television tummies?
the tubby custard machine in the Rockies clubhouse.
Ugh.
Yeah, that's
But
gross.
what a way to end the segment. We'll take our break here when we come back. Talk about some news from the Rockies' top prospect, as well as Rockies need they need some depth, and we'll talk about that when we come back here on Affected by Altitude. Back here on Affected by Altitude, Skyler and Evan here, talking with you, talking at you, while we're talking to each other about the Rockies and whatnot. And really quick here, probably a good piece of news, a big piece of news coming out of the Rockies, just organization in the system, was top prospect Ethan Holliday, who had been on a tear in Fresno as of late. Unfortunately, goes down with a foot injury that requires surgery, Evan, and he is now out for the season with that foot surgery, which just it sucks, especially because he's your top prospect, and not only that, but it's also he was hitting his stride, like he was figuring out Fresno, and it was awesome to see.
Yeah, a team leading 9 home runs, and really, really crushing the ball. The thing that makes it hard to not worry at least a little about it is we don't really know the true nature of the injury outside of it being a stress fracture in his left foot. We don't really know when the injury came about or how it came about. Um, and, there's always going to be some concern that it could potentially be a recurring issue or something that could plague him through his career. There's been plenty of players with foot and ankle issues that have kept them from meeting their true potential. But at the same time, what makes me not as worried about this is that young Ethan Holliday is 19. If he's going
Yeah,
to have
19 or
this
20
kind of
years
a
old.
season ending injury, we're at least getting it out of the way early enough that is not going to be missing, a huge ton of his development and really screwing things up. Yeah, it stinks that this is happening in his first full season of professional baseball, especially when he was finally starting to really open up the barrels and getting some really good hitting done down in low A Fresno. But there's a couple positives that I've been trying to think about for this, or rather, not positives like, oh, it's a good thing it happened, but rather things that you can look at and go, okay, we can make this work still. And that is one, the potential timeline for his recovery, if all things go well. He shouldn't miss any time next season at all. And if we're really lucky, he could potentially be back for Arizona Fall League, which could
Or
be a
winter
really,
ball.
or winter ball or something, which could be really, really interesting to see. Second, I think this is also a good time for the Rockies to evaluate how they want him to play and where they want him to play moving forward. He's very athletic, but he has not been that good of a shortstop down in Fresno. He's got 12 errors. He's big and he's got range, but he is just, you look at guys who are natural shortstops. They are so good at what they do. We said that about Ezequiel Tovar pretty much through his entire development. And now we continue to say it about him now he's in the bigs. And that's not Ethan Holliday.
Yeah.
And this gives the Rockies a chance to look at, all right, well, when we start ramping you back up, do we want to put you in left field like your dad? Do we want to try you at third base? Do you want to try first base? What we can keep going with shortstop. We can mix things up and really play with some of the defensive aspects of his game while not really having to tinker too much with the batting so far.
Yeah, you know, you look around the league, and we're finding again that the revolution that Troy Tulowitzki started, it seems like it's kind of petering out, where kind of shortstops are not the big lumbering slugfest adventurer at shortstop anymore. It's kind of going back to the leaner, like they're very athletic, but no, you look at the elite shortstops around the league, and you know they're not in the mold of Troy Tulowitzki anymore. Um, you're getting tall, lanky guys that are getting moved off the position, like a Fernando Tatis Jr. And Ellie De La Cruz isn't exactly that great of a defender. Good hitter, but you know, he has a great arm, but around overall, like eh,
Yeah,
he's adequate.
and he'll make some dazzling plays, but a lot of that is just because he is so big and fast and
Yeah,
long that he can get to balls that other guys maybe wouldn't need to get to. Another guy is O'Neal Cruz from the Pirates,
yeah,
who he's another one, big guy, moved away from shortstop, and now he is, instead of being a terrible shortstop, a terrible center fielder.
yeah. In general, but like you said, he's young. He'll heal quickly, and I'm sure his resources are perfectly fine with between the Rockies, probably his own personal, resources through his family. You know, he'll be fine. And said hopefully he's recovers enough in time where maybe go play in some complex league stuff, and in like instructional ball, or I don't know if he'd get into the Arizona Fall League, but a possibility, or winter ball. He can go play in Puerto Rico, go down in Mexico for a little bit.
Yeah, he's got the resources, and it's the
Yeah.
same for like they can give him rehab starts in the ACL, and they can move him around, and they've got their performance lab and stuff like that in Arizona, in addition to, like you said, all the resources that being a member of the Holiday dynasty has to offer.
Yeah. I think I also think he conspired to get this injury so he wouldn't have to show up on our podcast ever.
I know we've had very bad luck with that.
One day I'll get the white whale.
One day. And it's tough for Fresno because they're hitting a little bit of a cool stretch right now, when they've been very, very good this year. They have to call for reinforcements. They called up Ashley Andujar from the Complex League, but at the same time, you know it's a bummer. Like, it definitely stinks. Like, I don't think anybody's going, oh, I'm not going to worry about it at all. But in the grand scheme of things, I think people can turn down the worry a little bit and be like, yeah, that's a bummer, but he'll come back, and I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, pretty much. But so we'll see. We'll always keep that eye on him, hopefully for any news and whatnot. But if by some chance he sees this podcast, we'll talk to you if he's bored. But moving on from Ethan Holliday, Evan, we talked about it a little bit in the past. At least we talked about it earlier this month, talking about the Rockies' depth was getting tested recently. I think we talked about this all last week, something like that.
I feel like we've
Rockies,
talked about this every
yeah,
week, at least a little
we
bit.
keep talking about the starting pitching and whatnot, but injuries galore keep hitting the Rockies, especially on the pitching side of things. Wellington Herrera, who'd come up briefly this past week, uh, was doing good. Now he's down with an elbow injury. Jose Quintana's down with an elbow injury, and he's moved to the 60-day. You at least got Ryan Feltner back finally, so that's good. But talking about it, like the depth, depth is getting tested, um, even more so, and we see the Rockies picking up pitchers, but a lot of them are relievers, and it's figuring we might as well dive into this. Rockies need starting pitching depth in AAA specifically because it's an interesting field down there.
Honestly, they need pitching depth pretty much everywhere right now above
Yeah,
double A. Of but it really is affecting us in AAA and at the big league level, where in Albuquerque, they've one of the big reasons they've been struggling lately is just a lack of starting pitching depth. They've had a lot of bullpen games, they've had a lot of piggybacks, and there have been, some guys that were doing pretty well but they're not ready for the big leagues, or they've had
Mhm.
injuries or stuff like that. And that's how you end up with guys like Domingo Acevedo coming in and starting games, or
And
Erasmus
Erasmo Ramirez.
Ramirez. And it's not been great because you really do need that depth, especially with the big league roster right now, where you already had Ryan Feltner is back and he looked pretty solid the other night. But then the guy who Ryan Feltner is placing on the roster now is Jose Quintana, who, the day we recorded last week, left the game with an elbow injury and is now shut down on the 60-day IL. Currently, the thought is that he will not need Tommy John surgery, which he has never had in his career, but we never know for sure until they start trying to get him pitching again, honestly. Because how often do we see, just across baseball as a whole, if we think it's going to be fine, your elbow's feeling better, let's start getting you ramped back up. And then as they ramp back up, they go, nope, shut it down. He's done.
Yeah.
And we,
It's the
and it's,
fact that it's the fact that they immediately went from 15-day to 60-day, over the course of 1 week.
yeah,
And
we know
part of
he
those
will not be back soon.
yeah, which so that
And
hurts on the starting pitching side of things.
because you combine that with Michael Lorenzen and Kyle Freeland, who have both been struggling so hard. Freeland, just in general, whose ERA is now above 8, and Lorenzen, who just, I love Michael Lorenzen, but he seems to just fall apart after 2-3 innings. Like his first couple innings will be fine, and then things just completely fall apart to the point where people are suggesting, myself included, honestly, that it's time to move him to the bullpen where he spent most of his career, because right now, even though the wins in general don't matter, he is arguably, and you could say the same for Freeland, they're losing you games.
Yeah. They're actively hurting you by pitching. Which ugh, not the
And
best.
I'm really curious to see how Kyle Freeland's start goes tomorrow or today, whenever you're listening to this show, Monday against the Angels, because it's been rough sledding for him.
Yeah. But yeah, and that kind of brings up we're seeing a lot of reinforcements. Jeff Criswell is finally activated off the 60-day. He's down in AAA. But they're kind of working on him into a multi-inning role because who needs starting pitchers when you can have relievers throw 2 to 3 innings every time? If everybody's a
Yeah,
long reliever, Evan, no one
there's
is.
I am a little worried about the general thing that the Rockies have been doing, which is trying to get multi innings out of anybody, regardless of your role on the team, because I think it is still important to have your single inning specialists. And so I'm a little worried about that. And it's the same thing of they kept trying to do it with Wellington Herrera down in the minors of trying to get multiple innings out of him. And I don't think, in my opinion, it was a smart idea. And now he's after just 2 appearances, he's on the injured list with elbow inflammation.
Yeah, most relievers, I'd say, unless you're specifically, developed into the long reliever role, like if you're having to throw no more than 2 innings max for a reliever, depending on how good your first inning was, you
Yeah.
know, and even then you can pitch into that second inning, but it goes into matchups and whatnot. But when you're a team like the Rockies, you don't have the luxury because your starting rotation has been awful and you're not getting length out of guys. You're kind of backed into a corner where you're having to do that stuff.
Yeah. And when you've lost Chase Dolander, who's, the worry is that he could at some point need to get Tommy John surgery. Right now, they don't think that's going to be the case, but it's all, like I said earlier, it's one of those you never know.
Yeah.
And, looking at the most recent update for him that came this week is that they are taking it very slowly with him. Like I don't think he's going to be back anytime soon. And then you've
Yeah.
got McCade Brown, who still hasn't begun a ramp up program. You lost Pearson Ole, who could both start and relieve, to Tommy John before the season even started. Gabriel Hughes is on a rehab assignment with the Spokane Indians right now, but I don't know if he's ready for big league action yet. And the same can be said about Sean Sullivan, who's had some really nice games, but you just don't know. And I know that we need depth, but I always worry about, especially with young pitchers, rushing them up and having damage done to their development.
Well, that's a perfect transition to a guy that is no longer a Rocky. He was one a year ago, but back on the 21st, Carson Palmquist, former top arm, designated for assignment and then traded to the Nationals uh, recently. And a guy that was kind of that same thing, felt like he got rushed up finally a little bit and then was just not prepared for big league pitching last year, and then went back to Albuquerque and has struggled ever since. When he was sent back to Albuquerque. And part of that too was soft tossing lefties. That's why I worry about Sean Sullivan. Soft tossing lefties, I don't care how crafty they are a lot of the time, they're getting hit hard. That's Freeland's problem. That's been Sullivan's problems in his rough starts. Not everybody. Jose Quintana is not as is a fairly unique individual, but
Yeah. And it's so weird to me that right now, after everything, the Rockies' best starting pitcher right now is Tomoyuki Sugano in terms of wins above replacement, in terms of general stats, in terms of being able to get through. And he doesn't even get through that many innings. He's good for 4 to 5, sometimes 6 innings. But the problem is now with Quintana gone and how Lorenzen and Freeland and even Tanner Gordon today, for example, are all struggling to get through 3+ innings. And this bullpen is taxed, and you can tell. You can
yeah,
tell. Juan Mejia has started to really hit a bad slump. Bernardino has been struggling lately. And this is, there are guys in this bullpen that are not bad pitchers, but I think they have just been so heavily taxed over the last 2 months, which is something the Rockies wanted to avoid because they came originally into the season with what we considered it being kind of a strength of you've got these guys who can do bulk and you've got these guys who can do regular starts, and we can combine the two and save a lot of our bullpen. And that just hasn't happened. The opener gambit did not really work at all. Uh, some of the other guys that we've brought in, like Valente Belloso, we have not seen him again, and he's not done particularly well in AAA Albuquerque. It's a tough spot right now for the pitching staff.
yeah, you're seeing some scrambling a little bit. We've seen John Brebbia re-signed a new minor league contract, come back to the Rockies. He was with them in spring training. Jordan Romano, is he still out in the complex league?
Yeah, he is still in Arizona at the facility and has not really done anything.
They traded for Andrew Baker, minor league arm from Philadelphia. He's down in Hartford right now. I'm trying to look through who else. Rather random guys that have been signed. I saw there was a Griff Hughes, a left-hander, but he's down in like Arizona.
And has not been very good.
Yeah, so you can look through just this month. Roswell Ramirez, Domingo Acevedo, that you're waiting for guys to come back. Sammy Peralta and Blas Castano have just kind of been flip-flopping who's up on the big league roster and doing stuff. I think Castano's kind of hanging around as your long relief type guy.
Yeah, Castano right now is the multi-inning reliever because there really aren't any other ones like Keegan Thompson and Zach Agnos. And Zach Agnos has also just re-hit this pretty painful skid. Had a truly awful outing today. Like, I don't know how else to put it. 11 batters came to the plate, 7 runs scored, 5 extra base hits, 3 doubles, a triple, and a grand slam. It was rough. And the Rockies and overall depth is getting tested. A non-pitcher one really quick that I want to mention. So TJ Rumfield was scratched from today's game with shoulder soreness, and if he has to miss any bit of time, boy, they're probably going to regret DFAing Blaine Krim from the 40-man roster because he's gone now.
Yeah. It's just more time for Edward Julian to play. Side note, you'd probably have to play Johnston there more and just tell him, like, dude, figure out first base. He's less of a liability in first base than he would be in the outfield. Um, or and then you can call up Zach Veen or something. But yeah, it really goes back to that pitching. Is your all these guys were mentioning? It's like, okay, where's the depth starting pitching wise? Because Gabriel Hughes is still on the injured list, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm. He
Or
just
he's
had
rehabbing.
Yeah, he just had a very good, very, very good rehab start in High A Spokane. 3 hitless innings. Fabulous. Love it. And overall, he's been pretty solid in AAA to start his time down there, both last year and this year. But I don't want to rush him because I think very highly of Gabriel Hughes. But how many times have we seen a pitcher get rushed up and then obliterated, and then that's as they say, that.
Yeah. Um, let's see. I'm trying to. It brings up the question of, like, well, at what point do the Rockies need to start, like, kind of scouring the free agent market to bring in, like, your Chase Andersons that we had a couple years ago and stuff like that, of kind of the cannon fodder guys, just get you through games. No, Rich Hill still out there, Evan. You want Rich Hill? He still exists. But, like, or like swing in a minor league trade of some kind, to bring in an arm like that. I think the Rockies are going to have to start getting creative, because at some point it's like, okay, what if Kyle Freeland gets injured? Because it turns out, oh, he's still injured from his shoulder. We got to turn to somebody else.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And it's honestly, it's kind of tough right now because guys who are getting let go from other teams right now, it's a little slim pickings. Like, really, the only starter who's hugely available right now is Bailey Falter, who there's some stuff to like there, and he used to be. He had some very good seasons for the Pittsburgh Pirates before getting traded to Kansas City. But in 11, 12 games with Kansas City, he has been terrible. And he's also the soft tossing lefty mold.
Yeah. And then, like, Simeon Woods Richardson. No, Simon Woods Richardson just got DFA'd by Minnesota recently, but he hasn't. He's not really exactly the big league reinforcement. He's like a depth piece, if you want to swing that, because he's still young. But for a guy already struggling, I don't know if Albuquerque's the best place for him.
Yeah, and that's what makes it tough, because Colorado and Albuquerque are difficult places to play, but at the same time, we already know that rushing guys up from AA is a bad idea most of the time.
Yeah. Let's see, Nestor Cortez, what's he up to? He's still a free agent. You want Nestor?
I don't think he'd do very well here.
No, he wouldn't.
Like, I think he just then there's so many other pitchers that I don't think they would fit the mold of a pitcher that you would want to come in and pitch here in Colorado. And
Yeah.
we knew that some of these guys that we brought in this year, Quintana, Lorenzen, and Saganu were all somewhat risky moves. But honestly, and I know Lorenzen is frustrated. He's voiced his frustrations at his own performance, but it's been really disappointing to watch him
Yeah.
pitch this year.
Yeah. It's like, and you have to start making do with the things you have, like Keegan Thompson. Okay, start stretching him back out and use him as a starter. Oh, he was doing that in Albuquerque at times and had some good starts. Otherwise, you got to start looking at trades like, what could the Rockies get for an Adiel Amador? Oh, is there anybody that's willing to, like, a big league ready, capable arm for Amador? No, that's not going to cost the Rockies too much, and just a 1-for-1 type of swap.
Yeah.
Like, those are the kind of things the Rockies need to look at, because I think that you got to get through a season still while maintaining your vision and shaking some things up. And we're into June, so it's about that time you can start shaking things up and start really making roster changes.
Yeah, and we know that there's a willingness to cut bait on guys from the previous organization's leadership, and that they are exploring trades because they got at the very least cash considerations for Carson Palmquist.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got to figure something out.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'll start warming up. I can do it.
Yeah, it's not even a winning ball games thing. It's we got to make it through the season,
which is awful. And it goes back to what saying is they have to figure out the arms they have. Lorenzen and Freeland need to figure their stuff out because it's unacceptable.
Yeah,
And the team needs, I don't know, more accountability on that aspect.
and if Freeland is hurt, if he is still hurt, and that's the reason he's struggling so hard, then you need to make it not up to him and shut him down.
Yeah.
Because I know that he's not going to want to be shut down. He's going to want to keep going, especially when there's, millions of dollars on the line with that option for his innings limit.
But he's not hitting 170 innings.
And he's actively hurting the team right now.
Yeah.
When Brett Sullivan, your backup catcher, has had to make 4 relief appearances in less than 2 weeks, you've got a problem.
Yeah. Also, Kyle Freeland, in order for that option to vest, he needs to hit 170 innings. He's only hit 170 innings twice in his career.
Yeah, and I don't think it's happening this year.
It ain't happening. Thank goodness. But yeah, I don't know.
It's so frustrating because for Lorenzen, it's you're seeing a bunch of different things and he's trying a lot of new things that's not working. For Freeland, we know we can see exactly what is going on with him, and that is that he is not getting full velocity on his 4-seam fastball, so he doesn't trust it. So he starts moving to his other pitches, his breaking pitches, but then he can't locate those. And when you can't locate and you don't have a competitive fastball, you're just going to get hammered. And that is exactly what's happening.
Yeah, pretty much. Rough stuff. But yeah, they got to figure something out. You need some depth, and they need reinforcements on the starting pitching side, like we've talked about before. Something goes down, I don't know what they do.
Yeah, if, God forbid, Tomoyuki Sugano gets hurt or Ryan Feltner gets hurt again, we're out of options at this point.
Yeah, I do not look forward to that rotation of Erasmo Ramirez and Zach Agnos and Jimmy Herget. Oops, all relievers. Every game's a bullpen game.
Tanner Gordon, who bounces back and forth between being pretty bad and being pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Fun stuff. Anywho's, we'll move on to our final segment. Talk about the month of May real quick and the players of the month when we come back here on Affected by Altitude. Welcome back here to Affected by Altitude. Hey, Evan, some programming alert. We're not going to have an episode next week.
Oh, that's right.
Because we're both going to be at the Rockies game.
It's Dinger Bobblehead Day.
Live recording from Coors Field.
I mean, we could do it. We're not going to, but we could.
Yeah. My brother will be there. 3 of us we'll do a Affected by Altitude live from Coors Field. Because I don't anticipate, because I counted Evan, it might be Kyle Freeland that day.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
I miscounted. I thought it was going to be Sugano, but I think it's actually going to be Freeland.
Oof. Well, at least you'll get a Dinger Bobblehead for your troubles.
Yeah. At least I didn't have to pay to go to this game.
Did you use your Rockies TV coupon?
My 2 free tickets.
The suffering was worth it.
It went down, Evan. It was supposed to be 4, and then they dropped it down to 2 this year. Garbage. What have you done, Deep Podesta? And Walker? Where's my 2 other tickets? Anywho's. Month of May. Evan, May was not good. It was, after a pretty fun out of the gate April, May was not that. Better than last year's May, but pretty tough to replicate that again. But the Rockies sure did their best this year. Not 8 wins in the month of May, 8-20, an astronomical ERA, 235 batting average, a negative 74 run differential in May after -7 in March/April. So not a very good month for the Rockies.
Yeah, it was rough. It was a difficult month. The Rockies only won consecutive games twice. So how do you like that? They had just one series win. It was this win against the San Francisco Giants. And yeah, just overall, it was not a very good month. There was a lot of losing. There was a lot of bad pitching. And like you mentioned, the Rockies' astronomical ERA sits dead last in the league for the month of May at 6.73.
I think what was interesting too, Evan, now you can just look at the record and look at the calendar box scores and those stats and whatnot. But for people like us who sit and watch, that record could have easily been, this month could have easily been better than it was, because there were a lot of competitive games that the Rockies had throughout the month, but it was not being able to execute their game. They couldn't hit, and pointed to pitching was terrible, specifically the rotation. So a lot of those games, they're blowing leads. The bullpen was struggling late, so a lot of blown leads and missed opportunities at the plate where they were just coming up short, despite some solid competitive games throughout the month. I see you
Yeah,
counting the records.
I'm looking at the record now, and I just lost it. It was something like 8 games that they had. 8 of their losses in May were by 2 runs or fewer.
Yeah.
And are games where if you pitch slightly better and your offense takes advantage of the opportunities that they have, you could win that game. And
Yeah.
an 8-game swing in May, and we're in completely different territory than we are right now. And the Rockies
Yeah.
are still not a bad team, but they're not sitting at the very bottom of the major league, tied with the Detroit Tigers, surprisingly, for worst record in baseball. And it's another one. It's the pitching has been all over the place. The injuries this month, there's been a ton of them.
Yeah.
The lack of opportunities, and it came to a head with today's game, where it's just everything was bad today. The pitching was awful today, a reflection of how bad it's been in May. The offense scored 6 runs, but still went 2 for 14 with runners in scoring position and left 10
Yeah.
men stranded.
Yeah.
Very few extra base hits. It's rough. It was a rough month. I did not enjoy it.
Yeah. And it's like we talked about, they were boring and dull, and it's, you would have games like this. It was just kind of they're not getting blown out every game, but it was just uncompetitive a lot of the time. Yeah. Like you mentioned, we lost by 2-3 runs because we couldn't hit after the third inning type of stuff. And games that were completely winnable. The Rockies are leading, and then they give up the lead in the 7th, 8th, 9th, and then they fall flat.
Yeah. Or the rare occasion where they claw their way back and it's just too little too late. And so you lose by 2 runs, but it was already a Herculean task just to get you to that point.
Yeah.
And it's a shame, because I keep having to have these conversations with people about the expectations for the year. And you think about this time last year, the Rockies had 9 wins total.
Yeah, we still didn't have 10 wins.
And now we have 22 wins. That's progress. It's not good. The Rockies are still bad, but there's progress. And for as unpleasant as the month of May was, we still had some cool things happen. So it wasn't all bad. It was not a good month. I will never say that it was a good month. But at the very least, it's over. And we've had some positives to at least look at from there that you can hang your hat on. TJ Rumfield is still, hopefully he's not hurt too long, because he's still quietly one of the best rookie hitters in the National League. there have been a few pitchers who have still been good in May despite the overall collapse from the team. We have Tovar starting to rebound, like we talked about.
Yeah. So it's a good transition into our players of the month to close out this episode. If you'll recall, for April, I believe it was Mickey Moniak was our position player of the month, and then was Chase Dolander was our pitcher of the month.
I believe you are correct.
Indeed
But
it
we
is.
did
So,
shout out Antonio Senzatela at the time.
yes, he was a very close second. But that brings us to the month of May. And Evan, who is your position player of the month?
Honestly, this one was a little trickier than I thought, considering how bad May was. But there really were a few guys that stood out. And honestly, just a really quick honorable mentions for some of our guys. Willie Castro had a pretty good month of May. Tyler Freeman had a pretty good month of May. And Jake McCarthy had a very good month of May where he finally started to figure it out, get some hits, put that speed to good use. But I think overall, my player of the month is going to be one Mr. TJ Rumfield.
And that is the correct answer, Evan.
Rumfield went 310, 400, 483 for an 883 OPS in the month of May. 3 doubles, 4 home runs, 12 ribbies, 10 walks to 14 strikeouts. That's a pretty good ratio right there through 25 games in the month of May. He is currently one of the overall best rookies in the National League, and I would be delighted to pull up those numbers really quick if you give me a moment.
All right, let me spit some knowledge at you, Evan, about Rumfield while you look up those rookie things. I think the big thing for Rumfield is that he's just so consistent from game to game. You never have to worry about him. He's just taking these professional at bats. 10 walks that leads the team. Tovar, surprisingly enough, had 8 in the month of May. Edward Julian had 7. And then Troy Johnston, who quietly also had another solid month. But Rumfield, he's just the complete package of just this impeccable plate discipline. He's not striking out, making solid contact, finding his power a little bit. No, he's not knocked the cover off the ball, but he's getting his doubles. 3 doubles, then he's got his 4 home runs, but just consistently thrown out. He's always on base. Now, it's unfortunate that he's always on base because he's slower than molasses, but he puts together these really good at bats. You watch him, you're like, this kid is a rookie. Like, he's only played, however many, 50 some odd games, 60 games at the big league level. Like, he's looking really good. And, you wonder if the Yankees are like looking over like, okay, dang, like good on him.
Yeah, it's a bummer for him because, he clearly had the skill set, but he was absolutely blocked in the Yankees system. But now it's really nice to see a guy come over to the Rockies and thrive like he has, where, the problem is he's on the Rockies and he's not as flashy as some of the other guys. So I don't think he's going to win Rookie of the Year or anything like that.
He'll get votes like Nolan Jones in, like maybe a top 4 finish.
But currently, he's tied with Sal Stewart for the most hits of any National League rookie. He's in the top 3 for doubles and home runs and RBI and slugging and OPS. Like, he is very quietly and non-flashily one of the best rookie hitters in the National League right now. And he's not really getting his flowers for it, which is a shame, but he definitely earned those flowers here in the month of May.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we know Connor Griffin's probably going to end up winning the Rookie of the Year just because he has the pedigree name of being number 1 overall prospect in baseball type thing. And for some reason, like, the Pirates just, like, they get more publicity for some reason, despite always being terrible. It's weird. They're playing better this year.
They've got the history behind them.
Yeah.
And they've also got a lot of, like, very highly ranked prospects. Like, I know in general, you shouldn't really put a lot of faith in the numbers, but the numbers are what people pay attention to and go, oh, this guy was the number 1 overall prospect in all of Major League Baseball, so we got to pay attention to him, versus TJ Rumfield was not.
Yeah. But yeah, Rumfield, just an excellent month 25 games, 24 starts, and it's hopefully that shoulder inflammation or soreness isn't anything too big. Like, just kind of bother him a little bit. Let him rest a couple days, and then I'll get a cortisone shot, something like that. Settle that down, but you'd hate to lose him at an extended amount of time.
Yeah, they're calling it day by day right now, and we'll just take it day by day.
Yeah, good old Rumfield and McCarthy, very close second. We'll talk about him another time.
Yeah, if it wasn't Rumfield, it was either going to be Jake McCarthy or Troy Johnston, both of whom were the key contributors outside of Rumfield when it came to the Rockies hitting core.
Despite the weakest arm as a center fielder, Jake McCarthy was very good at the plate this month.
Man, that outfield defense was rough today.
Just a wet noodle. But that's it for our position player of the month. Now let's move on to pitching, which, like I mentioned, kind of rough. So congratulations, Brett Sullivan, on your 4 relief appearances this month.
Hey, he had 3 straight relief appearances without giving up an earned run and tallied a strikeout today, his first career strikeout.
Good for him. But Evan, who is your actual pitcher of the month?
He is a reliever. I'll start with that. The majority of the Rocky starters have not been good or hurt or a mix of the both. Ryan Feltner had 1 really good start when he just came back, but the guy I got to give it to is Jaden Hill. Jaden Hill came into this year looking for continuing something that he started last year. And last year, what I had said when I wrote about him on Purple Row was that he quietly established himself as a go-to guy in the bullpen, someone you can trust most nights to get some work done. And he has continued that this year and been just overall excellent. And he was, in my opinion, the best pitcher on the Rockies pitching staff for the month of May. He made 10 appearances over 9 1/3 innings, and he gave up 2 earned runs. So that's the ERA of 1.93 in the month of May, 11 strikeouts to just 1 walk. Yeah. So that is a whip of 0.86.
Yeah. I think I'd go with that as well, Jaden Hill. It was between him and Senzatella. And I really wanted to go to Senzatella, but I think Hill, like for those reasons you mentioned, really established himself as a go-to guy in a lot of leverage situations. He's the go-to lefty specialist. He can, come in with runners on and prevent them from scoring. And so a lot of instances of that, of just trying to shut the door. He's kind of struggled in the late innings for some reason, but really any instance in those middle innings, he's that go-to guy that can come in. And I like that the Rockies haven't really turned to him as, he's a multi-inning guy. Like a lot of the times he's coming in to close out, get 2 outs in an inning, get you out of the inning, and then they'll move on to somebody else. But he's settling into that kind of 1 inning role very well, which I'll see. And like you said, pound in the zone, 11 punch outs, 1 walk. You'll take that all the time.
Yeah, he's getting the work done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not to say that Senzatella wasn't good in May, even though May was really the first month where he had a couple of outings where he looked immortal, gave up his first 2 home runs of the season this month, which is already incredible. Like, I'm not going to complain about that at all, but it's just funny that where we are compared to last year for him. But
and I think with Senzatella too, he's settling into a different kind of role now, where they're turning him to as like the closer, but not just your traditional closer. It's like, hey, get the final 3 innings, get these final 2 innings for us.
Yeah, it's a clutch relief role versus the bulk innings role that was initially planned for him at the beginning of the season.
He's your 6-out closer. Sometimes even 9-out closer.
Man, this list is rough to look at for some of these guys.
Yeah. It's Ryan Feltner with his 1 start.
You have 7 pitchers on the staff with an ERA in May over 8.
That's fun.
And almost everybody is above 4. Almost everybody is above 5. It's been a rough go of it for Alon Leishman's guys.
Yeah, you just wonder what the heck happened between April and May. Teams figure you out. Scouting reports. Gotta ever change. But hey, congratulations to TJ Rumfield and Jaden Hill, the youngsters, as our players of the month. Good stuff. Another unanimous month for the two of us. It's usually how it goes. But that'll do it here for this edition of Affected by Altitude. Appreciate you tuning in, as always. And hey, like we said, we won't be here next week, but yeah, fun stuff. So you'll get a break at the start of June, but then we'll be back, Evan. There's nothing you can do about it.
Ominous.
Yes. Where can the folks find you?
You can find me on Blue Sky at evanlang27.bsky.social. I'd love to hear from you. I'm doing game coverage over on Purple Row, among some other general stuff. Remember that you can find Rocky Mountain Rooftop on all of your favorite podcasting platforms of choice, where we would appreciate it if you gave us a like or 5 stars or a rating or whatever. It really helps us sort of spread the net for helping expand our reach when it comes to the show. But Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, if it has podcasts, you can probably find us on it. There's also a video version of the show over on YouTube, and you can find us on social media pages all under the same handle. That includes the YouTube channel. That's at Rocky Mountain Rooftop, at ROCKYMTN Rooftop.
And find me over on Purple Row, right in the Wednesday Rock Piles, and over on Twitter at Skyler Timmons, or you can find me on Blue Sky as Timmons13.bskoa.social. I don't really post on either, but hey, go follow me if you want. Good times. But until next time, this has been our little Rocky show. I'm Skyler Timmons. That's Evan Lang. Until next time, hit 'em with it.
Farewell.
Bye-bye. This has been Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast with Rocky Mountain Rooftop, a proud affiliate of the Fans First Sports Network. Catch new episodes every Monday on wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Be sure to follow us on YouTube as well for video versions of the show.